All right, you're watching Crossfire. Thank you for staying with us. In studio, we have Ababu Namwamba, Labour Party leader, and we have Rosa Boyu, Kisumu woman rep. Thank you for finally getting here after like forever.
It was a bad day. The flight got delayed, and we were supposed to have left at 6:40, but we left at 7:15. And my, oh my, at least I'm here.
Okay, so there's so many questions that Ababu Namwamba said he wanted to ask you.
I had him say some very funny things.
Like
really funny things.
What did you hear?
They have majority, they have majority, they have majority. Majority is just as good, if as good as the election process that you've had. If the election process was not credible, if the electoral process was fraudulent, you can't talk about any majority. Which majority?
They don't have a right to talk about majority.
If the president himself is not a president because the election process was found to be fraudulent, which majority do they have?
Okay. Great. So let me begin this show.
Linda.
Let me begin. Okay, go.
Linda, I'm really happy Rosa is here.
I'm not happy about it. I don't know how to deal with you.
If it was not Rosa, I would have actually thrown a rungu.
Oh, why?
Not a physical one. Okay. Not a physical one.
Go.
I would want to understand if Rosa is sitting here. First of all, congratulations, Rosa. I'm so proud of this girl.
I wish I could say the same thing.
I'm proud of this girl because for her to get into this bunge, she has walked the straight and narrow, the difficult path. I know what she has gone through. And if any woman wanted inspiration in terms of...
they should come to Rosa.
They should look at Rosa.
Okay.
And so congratulations. Member for Kisumu County.
I wish I could say the same
Member for Kisumu County. But I want to tell Rosa, Rosa is claiming that this whole system, the majorities we are claiming in the county assemblies and the National Assembly, in the Senate, governors, is bandia. Is she bandia? Linda, is Rosa bandia? Because she allowed herself to be sworn in this parliament she's calling bandia. She sneaks into this parliament every morning to sign so that she doesn't fall afoul of the requirement that if you miss 8 sittings, then you're... Why doesn't she resign? Why doesn't she become the first one? Maybe on national live TV, resign from this system.
Ababu, you know what it is? Even when you ask me that question, I just feel sad. Because you've just tweaked your thinking from what your thinking was.
No. I'm just being honest. Because if Parliament is bandia,
the reason
and you're a member of this Parliament.
Yes. I didn't say Parliament is bandia. It's Jubilee Parliament. Is Jubilee what makes Parliament? I've just said the majority in Jubilee cannot be referred to as majority because it's majority out of a fraudulent election.
Okay. Now,
and by the time we are through with all the by-elections, you will not be talking about that majority.
If an election is fraudulent, then what Rosa is saying is that the whole gamut of this election, including her own election, is fraudulent. In
the real sense.
Because you cannot be a product of a system where you are taking pride. You went to Parliament. Why didn't you refuse to be sworn in?
Ababu, I will tell you this straight from
why didn't you reject your swearing in? Why do you go to Parliament every sitting day and sign in? Because you want to maintain your status as a member of Parliament.
I will tell you why I do that.
It is actually dishonest and very insincere.
Let her tell you why she does.
I will tell you why I do that. The law or the rule requires that you must go to Parliament, you must present yourself, and if you miss 8 sittings, then you're in problems. So we respect that law. But the reason why I'm not sitting in Parliament with Jubilee is because that Parliament is fake as it is now. We are talking about an electoral process that was fraudulent. We are up to changing and reforming that process. And if truth be said, it would have really been good if the whole election was called off.
Linda, you know what the English call splitting hairs?
Is this what you think it is? You know what shocks me? Ababu, just listen. When Ababu was in ODM or Ababu that I've known up to when he came to Jubilee, Ababu would not refer to pursuit of a credible electoral process as an activity of just splitting hairs.
Linda,
is that just splitting hairs?
We are not here to discuss Ababu Namwamba.
No, we're not discussing you.
We are discussing.
And on that note,
we are discussing the process. We are discussing a system, and we are discussing integrity, because integrity, not just of the process, even of all of us.
Yes.
If you doubt the authenticity, the integrity, the legitimacy of a process that led you to an institution, then you want to turn around and split hairs, split yourself from that institution, that to me is insincere. It's dishonest. That's the wrong phrase let me finish. Let me finish. I do believe that if NASA was sincere in their position, in their demand that the whole electoral process was fraudulent, then they shouldn't have allowed any of their members to be sworn into any of these houses. Okay. They wouldn't be having this organ they call a PG, because NASA calls their PG and they pass resolutions as a PG. And that PG is anchored on this institution they're calling illegitimate. Because minus that institution, then you wouldn't even have this organ called the PG. So the whole posturing for me is just reflective of the whole mindset of insincerity and dishonesty informing the whole discourse from the NASA corner.
Ababu, you know as well as I do, probably you know better because you're a lawyer. NASA does not have the mandate to call off elections of elected leaders or to nullify elections.
Okay.
NASA has the mandate. NASA has the authority
just listen to me.
To order all of you to resign.
Just listen. When we thought President Uhuru Kenyatta was not elected in a credible manner, we went to court because the court can nullify an election. NASA cannot come up and say that they're nullifying all the elections of the elected members.
Okay.
So
what I'm saying is very simple. It's not about NASA nullifying. It's just about doing the honorable thing.
People,
if you have no faith in the institution, then don't partake of that institution.
I need to move on.
Simple.
Okay, move on.
I need to move on. Listen, people, you're watching Crossfire, so I need to take a look at what happened today. NASA's flag bearer, Raila Odinga, talking about the campaign period and the concern, so to speak, by some quarters that NASA is not campaigning as much as they should. Let's listen into some of the sentiments from Raila Odinga and William Ruto as well.
Tukasema chairman mwenyewe aje tumpatie uamuzi wa kusema sisi tutaenda tukasome kwanza alafu wakitu.
Okay, so I'm waiting for a bite by Raila Odinga where he says the campaign season is over. Let's listen in.
Sisi kama wana NASA tuna sera sanifu ambayo tulizuru Kenya hii yote tukieleza wa Kenya. Wanasema mbona wana NASA wafanyi campaign? Campaign iliisha. Wakenya tayari wanajua NASA wanasimamia nini. Wanatuchelewesha tu.
Hawa wangwana sisi tunawaambia sisi sio mafala bwana. Eti mnatuambia utaki IEBC, utaki commissioner, utaki secretary, utaki mchapishaji wa ballot paper, utaki ule wa teknolojia. Alafu wewe bado unatuambia bado ati uko tayari kwa uchaguzi.
Okay, I apologize for that sound by Deputy President William Ruto. But Rosa, your reaction to that?
I think Honorable Raila Odinga is right.
What, for that, the campaign season is over?
We had ample time to campaign.
You're not campaigning?
Kenyans know exactly what NASA stands for. Kenyans know exactly what Jubilee stands for. By 8th of August, Kenyans had made up their minds, and Kenyans voted. The only problem was their vote did not count because of a fraudulent transmission process or election process.
William Ruto says probably this is an indication that NASA is not ready for election.
I think people have different strategies. If the strategy of Jubilee is, and this is what I think their strategy is, that 8th of August, they lost that election, and since they lost that election but thought they were going to be the winners, now that they're not winners, and they discovered by the results of that election, the real results that we don't know about publicly, they now know that there must be something they didn't do. So they are on the trail trying to do it now. NASA already did it.
You're not worried?
Oh, no, we are not worried. The Kenyans who voted for NASA on the 8th of August are going to vote for NASA. And we are even going to have more people voting for NASA because you mean NASA actually won. These people stole elections. So we are going to add our numbers there. We don't need to tell Kenyans again what we stand for. They know it.
Ababu, they don't need to campaign. They see
we don't need to go all over like
Linda,
Jubilee's going.
this is just hilarious.
What is hilarious?
It is so hilarious.
What is, Ababu?
You know, we have had, this is like a by-election. It's like an election is nullified, then you go back to a rerun or a fresh election. It is going to happen in several constituencies and counties as petitions go through the judicial process. And every election is like a fresh election. You got to do a fresh pitch with the voter. What the truth is and what NASA is not admitting, either they're not ready for this election, they know they lost the election on August 8th, they know they will lose even more on October 17th, because you see, between August 8th, or perhaps between September 1st, when the Supreme Court rendered its verdict, and to that, NASA has been hemorrhaging every day. Hemorrhaging, losing.
Losing what?
Losing people.
Why? How?
Isaac
Where?
Ruto, gone. Peter Munya, gone. Just hold on.
Losing losers. I want you to say the truth. Losing losers.
No.
No, just be honest.
You know when Munya joined NASA, it was celebration all over the place. Raila Odinga himself called a press conference, and behold, to the whole world, we have nailed a big wig, and even immediately admitted him to become a co-principal. Now they're calling him a loser. You see the insincerity?
No.
Now, just hold on, Rosa. They have lost Isaac Ruto. They have lost Peter Munya. They have lost Moses Karanga. They have lost Paulo Tuoma. They have lost Hangati. They have lost... No, Paulo Tuoma campaigned for Raila more than even your own candidate in Busia. They have lost David Musila. They have lost Hassan Omar. It is hemorrhage. It is actually chronic hemorrhage.
And you think that is why they're not campaigning?
It has made their situation worse.
Does that make sense? So we'll be campaigning more.
What I'm telling you is that, you know, campaign or not campaign, you're going to lose this. And in any case, if they were not interested in a campaign, they're not interested in this election, why are they collecting money from poor Kenyans? They're asking Kenyans to send 10 shillings from Kibra, from Mathare.
Because we know we are going to lose, so we're asking for money.
So why are you collecting money? Because normally, I know that in every system, in every democratic system, where you collect money for campaigns, like in the US, for instance, you collect money to run a campaign. Okay. Now you are telling Kenyans on live TV that you are collecting money, but then you don't want to campaign. You finish your campaign. So,
Linda, can I say this?
Yes,
Ababu, one thing you must realize is that you're out of ODM, you're out of NASA, and one thing you must realize is you cannot dictate our strategy for us. You cannot dictate the manner in which we might want to choose to campaign. We do not have to campaign the way Jubilee is campaigning. We don't have to do it the way you're doing it.
Oh, that's a change of language, Linda.
No, just listen.
Now, it's not about campaigns, it's about
change of tactics. So we don't have to go all over the place shouting like you're shouting. So when we are taking that money, we want to channel it in the way that we want to do it. We want to campaign. A different thing from running all over the place as if we keep on changing, because this is what you people do. You are not constant. You are not consistent. So because you're not consistent, you have to be on the campaign trail all the time, because you have to remind Kenyans that this time this is what we stand for.
Okay, Rosa,
NASA has always been consistent in what they do. Okay. What they campaigned for before 8th of August is what they still stand for now. And Kenyans know that. And Kenyans made up their minds on 8th of August, which again is what they're going to exercise on the 17th of October. Genuine
concern, though, Rosa, and this has come from a lot of Kenyans as well. So they're asking, okay, so NASA is not campaigning. So the campaign, the funding, the payable, the number that was there, what is that money going to be used for? You know, and this is strictly for the sake of my viewers.
When you go into an election, money is spent in so many different places or different ways. It's just not in the campaign, active campaign. You can use money to organize yourselves, because to win an election, you don't just have to campaign outside. You need to organize yourself. You need to have proper agents. You need to have good structures, good reporting structures. All that need money. It doesn't have to be active shouting campaign on the streets. That's not the only way you can spend money.
Linda, this is a punctured balloon. This is a punctured balloon. Linda, immediately upon the ruling, 2 days immediately after Maraga rendered his ruling, Raila Odinga and his battalion were in Kisii. Kisii County, Nyamira, oh, Maraga is under fire. Oh, we have to go to tell the Kisii now. Rally around your man. And then they were off to Machakos. Today is not yesterday. Raila was out in Bungoma campaigning in a funeral. That clip you just played there. That was Raila campaigning in a funeral in Bungoma, at the funeral of the mother to Wafula Munyinyi's dad, Matthew. So they're campaigning, but they're campaigning like a punctured balloon, because that's what it is. It's just a punctured balloon.
Just out of interest, did you go for that funeral, Ababu?
That's not the point.
No, just out of interest.
The point I'm making is that the funeral was widely reported, both in the print and the electronic media. Whether I attended the funeral or not is not the point. The point I'm making is that they're struggling to campaign. But you see, the tires have come off this vessel. So the vessel is limping.
And this would be a good place to also bring you into this conversation, Ababu, because there are also concerns about the funding that Jubilee has. Where is Jubilee getting its funding to do all the campaigns that they're doing? Are they using public funds? Direct question.
You see, no, of course, you are not using public funds. How would you use public funds in a scenario where public funds are openly and transparently audited? A campaign can be financed through personal means. People, I'm sure Rosa can tell you that she did not need anybody to fund her to run her campaign. Can I take you back? No, let me just finish. Let me just finish, because a question was put to me. Okay. So I believe that the Jubilee leadership has got its own structure in terms of how to finance its operations. And I believe it is being done above board and within the confines of the law. I believe public funds are not being used in this process. But be it as it may, Linda, I really hope that NASA would be honest with Kenyans, especially on areas where their stance, the position they take, is also at variance with the Constitution, and it is at variance with the public good. Okay. They say, like which one? They say they are not boycotting this election, but they're also saying that they'll stop this election from taking place. Now, to me, that is actually usurpation of the constitutional order. We have not said an assault. We have not said we are going to stop. Wetangula the other day said... No. Ababu? Linda, I'm sure you could even ask... We said we are not boycotting the election. You could get the clip that because there will be no election. And you are saying there will be no election as who? Wetangula actually said you have no authority to decide whether there will be an election or not. Yes, just listen. We are saying there will be no election unless we reform the electoral system such that Jubilee will be happy with it, NASA will be happy with it, and Kenyans will be happy with it. You want an election that everyone will be comfortable with? Yes, that is what we are saying. Linda, before you I hope you can give her that clip from Wetangula, but I want to tell you this. Okay. Kenya is not a jungle. This is a constitutional democracy anchored on the rule of law, on the rule of the Constitution, not on the word of Raila Odinga. If we were to run this country on the whim of an individual, then there'll be no country. It reminds me these words of a famous jurist who once sat on the judiciary of the U.S. It's called Felix Frankfurter. He says, and I quote him, "If one man can be allowed to determine what is law, then every man can. But then that means first there'll be chaos and then there'll be tyranny." Okay, such that if you allow an individual, like Raila Odinga is attempting to do, to be the one who determines what is the law and what is not the law. In this case, let me conclude this. Okay. The Constitution is very clear. In the event of a nullification of an election, it must be done afresh in 60 days. Okay. The Supreme Court was very clear in its determination. Okay. This election has not been done properly in accordance with the Constitution. I don't agree with that ruling in any case, but it is a ruling of the court. And it tells the IEBC, deliver a fresh election in 60 days. That is a ruling of the highest court in the land, which is based on the Constitution of the Republic. I think Ababu is taking too long. So time is running out. I'm giving you your time. What is the basis? Trust me, I'll give you your time. When NASA said there will be no election, on what basis? Under what law? Okay. On the basis of what Constitution? Rosa, go. Then I'll add something. Ababu. Yes. Yes, Rosa. NASA has not said that they do not want an election in these 60 days. You're saying there will be no election? No, listen. What NASA is doing now is spearheading at the electoral reforms. Which reforms? Come on, posturing. So that when we have Form 34As, we have standardized Form 34As where there'll be no room to have fake Form 34As. So that when you have returning officers, given mandate to be returning officers, they will not walk away and put results and not put their signature as mandated by law.
so that when you have a server, you will not have funny people getting into that server and changing figures more than almost 10,000 times. This is what NASA is fighting for now. It does not mean, because to you, you want an election on the 17th or within those 60 days because the court said it, whether the electoral system or whether we make improvements on what was pointed out to be wrong or not. That is what you want. But NASA is, just give me time, you've spoken. Okay. NASA is on a different platform. And even when you are in ODM, we were always on the forefront of democratizing this country. So what NASA is saying is, oh, Supreme Court pointed out a few things that was wrong with our electoral system. Why go into this election with the same mistakes and have the elections being nullified again should anybody go to Supreme Court again? So we are saying we'd like to lay our focus, yes, we'd like to lay our focus on making this process better. So that Ababu, if you are elected the president, or if Raila is elected the president, it's okay with Kenyans because the process was credible, the process was transparent, and the process was accepted and agreeable to all Kenyans. That is what we're after. But what you are after with your Jubilee Brigade is process does not matter. Credibility of process does not matter. Let us just go into that election.
Okay, so on that note, I'm hoping we can listen into what the president had to say on some of the demands that are being made by NASA. But Ababu, let me pose this question to you. The Supreme Court was very categorical. It said there were illegalities and irregularities that happened in the August 8th general election. Is Jubilee comfortable in going for a rerun with the status quo as is?
Let me tell you, Linda, the question of irregularities and illegalities is something actually, we've had this before because many elections have been nullified before, only that this is the first presidential election to be nullified. Okay. But elections have been nullified at the level of governor, at the level of member of parliament. And when a court is nullifying an election, it will always give reasons. It will always tell you because there were irregularities here. That is normally a challenge to the electoral body to up their game so that when there is a repeat election, then those mistakes are not repeated. And remember, Linda, before we even go further in this ping-pong argument, we have not seen the detailed, reasoned judgment from the Supreme Court yet. That detailed judgment will be able to tell us succinctly and in detail what exactly they meant by irregularities. If they meant, for instance, that some forms were not stamped, or some forms did not have security marks, or maybe some forms were not signed by the returning officer, if those are the irregularities they're talking about, then for me, those are administrative matters that simply means the officers handed the responsibility to complete this documentation slept on the job. Okay. So
Rosa, I need to wrap this up.
When we hear when we get that detailed judgment, then we can be able to know exactly what this is. But when NASA starts running around and saying, for instance, fire Chiloba, they have identified Chiloba as their
the summary as was given by the Supreme Court. Already in that summary, or the summarized version of their judgment, you could actually pinpoint where the loopholes are.
Which are?
What NASA is saying.
Tell us the loopholes.
If these loopholes, for example, if there were irregularities and illegalities, who then would be in charge of, say, something like transmission? Who would be in charge of that? So NASA is saying, if the person who was in charge of that slept on the job, then that person should not be the person running this new election. This is what NASA is talking about.
But why do you want to pass the verdict, Linda, before the judgment with the details come out?
Linda, I must ask Ababu one question that you asked him. Ababu, can I just ask you this question, which Linda asked you? I want to ask you to leave Raila out of it, to leave Uhuru out of it, and let us just talk about the election process that we had. Do you think that there's nothing that needs reform in the process, according to what the Supreme Court...
About 30 seconds, please.
30 seconds. I believe that the full power in an election
is the voter.
Okay.
And I believe that the will of the Kenyan voter is
in
those ballot boxes.
The voter votes, and what you report is not what the voter actually says.
The voter voted Uhuru Kenyatta president.
I need to wrap this up.
People,
for president.
Thank you so much for watching Crossfire.
The voter voted Raila
Crossfire.
But Uhuru Kenyatta was declared the winner.
Okay, we'll do this.
To the transmitted results.
Rosa.
Which one?
Listen. People, you're watching Crossfire. Thank you for staying with us. So let's do. I will. You can come here. Trust me, you can come here next Sunday. People, you're watching Crossfire. Thank you for watching. Have a good night. I'm Lindo Gutu. Good night.